This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I felt that in the previous slide, while we discussed about the documentation in the waterfall methodology, we need to spend a little more time on understanding these documentation, because documentation in waterfall is going to be a little comprehensive when compared to the agile documentation. Anyways, we will cover the user story concept with examples when we get into the agile uh, concept discussions. For now, let's get into the BRD and FRD documentation. Okay, so a typical business requirement document or a functional requirement document usually consists of multiple sections. So it's like it could be a lengthy Word document usually, which is used to capture the capture the requirements in a document format. Okay, so as I had mentioned earlier also, there could be some instances, like it's fewer instances wherein the business team itself comes up with a full-fledged business requirement document saying that this is what we need. But most of the times it depends on the business analyst to understand the requirements and first have a business requirement document, drafted out and get it approved and then get into the FRD. But the type of sections within the documents of BRD and FRD are more or less the same. There are few additional sections that come into FRD, but the overall structure remains more or less the same. Okay, so it all starts with a title page. So when we say title, it's just not name of the project, but you also have to mention the version number. uh, what do you mean by version number is nothing but, say today you have completed all the workshops that you had to conduct with the stakeholders. You have drafted the first version or the initial draft of your business requirement document and you have shared it to the stakeholders. This would be the first version, version 1.0. Do you assume that it was going to be the final version? Definitely not. Any project that you take up, the first version is definitely not going to be the final version, because the stakeholders will come back with a lot of comments, lot of feedbacks, lot of changes to be done in the document. They'll say this requirement is not captured properly, this is different and we need to spend more time on this particular point. This was not captured. A lot of such to and fro process happens. So they first share the feedback, you revise the document, you send the second version, and again there could be some feedback, and then you could conduct some session to get that clarity, and then there could be third version, so that could even go to seventh or even ninth version also. So you mention the version number in the title, and you mention the date on which you're sending that particular document to the stakeholders. It becomes very important. Okay, because you cannot, a few months down the line, you cannot say that I don't remember, was the document sent in the month of February, or was it in the month of March? I don't remember, but something around that. It becomes that way. So to avoid that, you mention the date and the author, because at the end you own the solution requirements, right? So you mention your name as the author of the document. After having done that, you may come to the table of contents. So for those people who are not aware, most of you may already be aware, but for those who are not aware, you can use multiple features in a Word document, at the top ribbon that you have when you open MS Word. So from that, you can use multiple sections, like, heading section or the table of contents section, title section, page break section. All those options you can use very effectively. The borders, you can use that. You can use watermarks, you can use header, footer. You can use all of these features to make your business requirement document as professional looking as possible. Okay, so try out all these features. That would really help you. You don't have to manually insert the page numbers. You don't have to manually update the table of contents. You don't have to manually ensure that all the headings are of the same type, font type and color and all those can be done in a very easy and quick fashion if you know the right options in MS Word. So spend some time on doing that. uh, Using that particular feature, table of contents, you can just first create the document, then go to the top ribbon and click on table of contents, and automatically it gets created. So that becomes the second one. Then comes something called as a executive summary. What is this? It's nothing but a sort of a high level overview of the project, wherein you're just mentioning the key objectives and the business requirements in a very crisp manner. Imagine that the CXO of the company wants to know what is this project about. When I say CXO, it could be CTO or CIO or CFO, anyone like that. Okay, so you have to give a concise summary of the business problem. That is what you do. So generally, it will be like, it will say that this particular project is for which company, what is the major thing that this company is into, and what are the, if you want to talk about the number of branches and number of products and services that they offer, you mention the number, not the entire list and all. So you mentioned that, okay, this particular project is related to ABC Bank, which is headquartered in US and has operations across 32 countries or 50 countries. And right now, this particular bank wants to venture into a new market wherein they want to come up with uh, you know, a sort of a new loan product for the customers. And this project focuses on adding those features to the existing mobile app. That's it. You're just telling the client the one or two lines about the client's business, and then you're talking about this specific project, how it is going to add into that their existing business. Okay, that is what you do in the executive summary. Then comes the background. So here, introduction, wherein what you do is you give a brief information about the project, the purpose, how it aligns with the organization goals, who are the stakeholders, what are the roles, you give all that information in the introduction section. Once having set up the context by giving the executive summary and the introduction, now you can get into some sort of detailing. So here you start mentioning about the scope. Okay, so what is the scope? Here you will tell about what is this project entailing all about, for which region is it, for which customer segment is it, and what could be considered more to be in scope, out of scope. All those points will come here to mention, like what is included, what is excluded from the delivery that needs to be done for this project and all, the project boundaries, limitations that you try to put it up front. Okay, because you see, any document, even if you are asked to go through a document, you will lose the attention by the time you go to, even if I give you a resume of 4 pages or 5 pages, you might go through the first page very attentively. By the time it comes to second page, you lose your focus. Third, fourth, and fifth, you might not even go through. And that's the reason why most of the people suggest to have just a 1 or 2 page resume, not more than that, because usually no one reads beyond second page. So similar to that, BRD also will be a very lengthy document, but try to capture all of these things in the initial page itself. You talk about the executive summary, introduction, and scope. Now, after having talked about these things, then get into the nitty-gritties. Okay, so now you talk about the business requirements. This will be the entire list of business requirements, telling about what is each requirement about, describing it, how is it going to justify the business objective, that is justify how it's going to add to the business objective, and what is the source of this requirement. Sometimes if you have multiple sources of your requirements, like some requirements were captured from the interview process, some were captured through the workshop, some were captured from the document analysis. So you try to mention those things over here. After having done this, then you get into the assumptions and constraints. So what you do here is, whenever you take up any project, there will be some assumptions which you will do. You cannot say that I'm totally starting from blank, there's no assumption that I'm making. That never happens. You might be assuming that, okay, this product is going to be used only here. You might be assuming that this product is going to be used in the mobile app, which is only for the latest Android and iOS uh, smartphones. You may be assuming that this has to support only these 2 3 languages, or you may be assuming that this is the scope of this app is limited to only scope of this product is limited to adding only the loan product feature to the app. So whatever assumptions are there, you have to mention that. Also, you will get a lot of assumptions when you're doing the requirements gathering. Okay, when you do requirements gathering and then you go back to your home and do the analysis, then you come across the additional points which you think that, okay, this is what I assume, based on which this requirement serves a purpose. So you try to mention that out. What are the constraints? Constraints could be about the things which will impact the project, mostly in a negative manner. Like for example, there is a timeline constraint saying that okay, this project is planned to be completed within the next 6 months, next 1 year. Resource limitations, or there could be budget limitations. You may not be getting into the financial part, so budget is something which you can skip. But the other things which you're aware of, because at a later point of time, no one should come and say that uh, this project definitely required these additional features. Why was it not done? Then, if you say that this was not done because we had a limitation on the timelines, within which we had to deliver, you can just point out to this section and say that this point was already captured in the assumptions and constraints section of the business requirement document. Okay. Then comes the risks and issues. So in fact, there's something called as a risk matrix that is used in some of the projects. What you do here is that you try to identify and assess the potential risks involved in the project. Depending on the nature of project, the risk could be a different type. Some risk can be completely prevented, but the other risk have to be mitigated. What's the difference between prevention and mitigation? Prevention is you can completely avoid those mistakes. Mitigation is you cannot avoid it totally, but what you do is you try to reduce the impact of it on your project. So you try to mention those points here. You give description of any issues or challenges which are identified during the requirement gathering. Like, if you remember, and I had mentioned about some of the challenges that sometimes the stakeholders will stick to a specific solution, saying that this is what technology we want to use. We don't want to upgrade because we have a limitation. So now you're saying that will cause a sort of lack of some features in the uh, whatever project delivery is there, right? So you'll mention that because of there is a it can come in constraints also, it can come in risks also. In constraint, you'll mention because of this particular limitation, we cannot provide the additional features which have been expected. And in terms of risks and issues, you'll mention that these features will not be part of this particular project. Okay. And then there are some dependencies. Dependencies could be on teams, on the existing system, on the limitation set by the external regulatory body. There could be any such sort of dependencies. So whatever dependencies are there, also it could be like, okay, your business team is working on something, but there is a dependency on one of their sub teams, to get some compliance approvals within their team, or any such thing. If there's any dependency, you try to call it out here. Then comes the cost and resource estimates. This you do with the support of your project manager. So you create a high level estimate of financial resources and the human resources required for the project. After this comes the approval and sign off. So you create a specific table wherein you mention that this is the stakeholder division, and then this SPOC, the specific person of contact from that particular division, and then you mention the date when it was signed off, and then the signature section. Okay, so there should be a table created like this so that you can clearly say that okay, for this particular document, I received the sign off from this stakeholder on so and so date from this particular division. That is very much necessary so that at a later point of time there is no gap in terms of understanding why a specific requirement was not there or why this was not detailed enough. All those things you can definitely rely on the stakeholders and say that based on my discussion in the workshop with these stakeholders, this is what I have come up with. And finally, uh, typical to any other major, even your PPTs also sometimes have appendices. So if you have detailed information about something, which need not go into the main section of your document, what you do is you create a reference for it in the major document, and then here you'll have the other information about it. So what you do is in your business requirement section here, you mention that okay, for further details on the terms and conditions of this particular feature, you can refer to section 3.5 in the appendix, and then the further details about it will be part of here this section. So typically these are the sections that you'll have, and as I said, your FRD also will have similar things, but instead of your business requirements here, you'll get into the functional requirements, and functional requirements will be much more intricate and more detailed, and more information has to flow into it. And also you might include a little bit of your data requirements and user interface requirements and testing requirements. Those things can be part of it. And also maybe one or two lines about the change control, saying that if there is any change expected, this is the process to be followed. That would be something which would be replacing your your functional requirements, your user interface requirements, testing requirements, and change control will be replacing your business requirement section. Everything else more or less remains the same. And anyways, what you do is you create an outline of it, you discuss about it in one of the workshop with the stakeholders, saying that this is how I want to document the things. Let me know if you want me to add anything else. Take their feedback, and based on that you make the changes. At the end, they are the readers, they have to confirm, and after that you start putting the information into it. Okay, so this is in short about the way in which BRD is created. If possible, I'll share a sample BRD document at a later point of time in the project. Okay, so we'll close this here. Thanks everyone.